The emergency beacon pierced through the void of space like a dying star's last scream. Ambassador Krelna of the Zephyrian Federation pressed her six-fingered hands against the smooth control surface of her diplomatic vessel, watching the distress signal pulse with increasing urgency on her holographic display. Her elongated neck swayed slightly as she read the transmission again, her large, compound eyes reflecting the amber warning lights that now bathed her ship's bridge. "This cannot be correct," she whispered to herself in the melodic tones of her native language before switching to Galactic Standard. "Computer, verify signal origin and classification." The artificial intelligence responded immediately in its neutral voice. "Signal confirmed as Class 7 Distress Protocol. Origin, Mining Station Kepler 442b, Outer Rim Territory. Message reads, under attack by unknown vessels, civilian population at risk. Any ships capable of military assistance, please respond immediately. We are defenseless." Krelna's breathing quickened. A Class 7 was the highest possible distress rating, reserved for imminent genocide or planetary destruction. Her diplomatic vessel carried no weapons beyond basic defensive shields, but galactic law was clear about distress protocols. Any ship receiving such a signal was legally and morally obligated to respond, even if that response was simply to relay the message to those better equipped to help. She had been returning from successful trade negotiations with the Altarian Council when the beacon reached her ship. The mining station was barely 2 light-years away, well within range of her communication systems. Protocol demanded she investigate and provide whatever assistance possible, but more importantly, she needed to contact the nearest military forces. "Computer, scan for all vessels within a 50 light-year radius. Military classification priority." The scanning array hummed to life, sending invisible waves through subspace to detect any ships that might respond to the emergency. Within moments, results began appearing on her screen. 3 Zephyrian patrol ships were detected 47 light-years away, too distant to arrive in time. 2 Altarian trading vessels registered nearby, but like her own ship, they carried no significant weapons. Then something unusual appeared on her scanner. A single contact, roughly 15 light-years from the mining station. The signature was unlike anything in her ship's extensive database of known vessels. The energy readings suggested a medium-sized craft, but the propulsion system was completely foreign to Galactic Federation technology. "Unknown contact designated as Contact Alpha," the computer announced. "Vessel appears to be of non-Federation origin. Energy signature suggests primitive but functional faster-than-light capabilities." Krelna studied the readings carefully. The ship seemed to be from a species not yet encountered by the Galactic Federation. This was both exciting and concerning. First contact with new species was supposed to happen under carefully controlled circumstances, with trained diplomatic teams and extensive preparation. But the distress signal left no time for such luxuries. She made her decision quickly. "Computer, open a channel to Contact Alpha. Use Universal Translation Protocols and Peaceful Greeting Format 7. The communication array activated, sending a focused transmission toward the unknown vessel. Krelna composed herself, straightening her ceremonial robes and ensuring her translator was functioning properly before speaking. "Unknown vessel. This is Ambassador Krelna of the Zephyrian Federation. I am transmitting coordinates for an emergency situation requiring immediate military assistance. A civilian mining station is under attack by hostile forces. If your vessel has defensive capabilities, please consider rendering aid. This is a formal request under Galactic Emergency Protocol 7. She waited, counting the seconds as her message traveled through space. The unknown ship was far enough away that even subspace communication would take several minutes to reach them and several more for any response to return. While waiting, Krelna pulled up what little information her sensors had gathered about the attacking force at the mining station. The reports were fragmentary, transmitted in panicked bursts from the station before their communications array was damaged. 3 ships of unknown configuration had appeared without warning and begun attacking both the station's infrastructure and the small civilian vessels attempting to evacuate. The attackers were clearly more advanced than the miners, whose equipment was designed for resource extraction rather than combat. But they were also apparently less advanced than most Federation species, using projectile weapons and crude explosive devices rather than the sophisticated energy weapons common throughout civilized space. 15 minutes passed before her communication system chimed with an incoming transmission. Krelna activated the receiver, uncertain what to expect from this first contact with an unknown species. The voice that emerged from her speakers was unlike anything she had ever heard. Where most civilized species spoke in melodious tones or harmonic frequencies, this voice was rough, almost aggressive in its cadence. The universal translator struggled for a moment before resolving the alien words into Galactic Standard. Federation vessel, this is Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force ship Defiant. We received your distress call. Our tactical analysis indicates we can reach the mining station within 3 hours. Be advised, we are responding with full military authority under Earth's humanitarian intervention protocols. Krelna blinked in surprise. The response was unlike anything she expected from a newly contacted species. Most civilizations approach their first interaction with the broader galaxy cautiously, asking questions about Federation law and seeking guidance on proper procedures. This Commander Chen seemed to be taking charge of the situation entirely. Commander Chen, Krelna replied carefully, I must inform you that this is likely our species' first contact. Are you familiar with Galactic Federation emergency protocols? There was a brief pause before the human responded. Negative, Federation vessel. We're not familiar with your specific protocols, but we understand the concept of civilians under attack. That's all we need to know. Defiant is en route to provide assistance. The channel closed before Krelna could respond. She stared at her communication panel in bewilderment. In her 40 years of diplomatic service, she had never encountered such a direct, almost cavalier approach to interstellar law. Every species she had met showed appropriate respect for Federation authority and procedure. She decided to contact the mining station directly to inform them that help was coming, but when she attempted to establish communication, only static answered her calls. Either the station's communication array had been destroyed completely, or something worse had happened. With growing concern, Krelna set course for the mining station herself, though she knew her diplomatic vessel would arrive hours after the unknown human ship. As her vessel jumped to faster-than-light travel, she spent the time researching everything her ship's computers could tell her about this mysterious species called humans and their planet Earth. The information was sparse. Her ship's long-range sensors could detect that Earth was located in what the Federation classified as a remote and dangerous region of the galaxy. The planet itself registered as what xenobiologists called a Class 12 death world, a classification so severe that Krelna had to check the readings twice. Class 12 worlds were considered uninhabitable by virtually all known intelligent species. They were characterized by extreme weather patterns, dangerous predator species, toxic atmospheric conditions, or gravitational forces that would crush most civilized beings. The fact that any species had evolved to intelligence on such a world was remarkable. The fact that they had developed space travel was extraordinary. But most disturbing was what the sensor data revealed about human technology. While their faster-than-light drives were indeed primitive compared to Federation standard, their ships seemed to be built like weapons of war rather than tools of exploration and trade. The energy signatures suggested massive defensive systems and weapon arrays that dwarfed anything carried by Federation patrol ships. As her ship traveled through hyperspace toward the mining station, Krelna began to wonder if her distress call had inadvertently invited something far more dangerous than the original attackers to respond. 3 hours later, her ship dropped out of hyperspace near Kepler 442b. What she saw made her breathing stops entirely. The mining station was intact, its lights glowing peacefully against the darkness of space. Around it, civilian evacuation ships moved in orderly formation, apparently unharmed. But floating nearby were the twisted, burning remains of 3 ships that could only be the attacking vessels. And hanging in space like a dark omen was the human ship Defiant. Krellna had seen warships before. Every Federation species maintained military vessels for defense and peacekeeping, but this human ship was something else entirely. It was larger than she had expected, easily twice the size of a Federation cruiser, and its hull was covered in weapon emplacements and defensive systems. It looked less like a ship and more like a flying fortress designed for one purpose: destroying other ships. Her communication system activated with an incoming transmission from the mining station. The voice that emerged was shaky but relieved. "Ambassador Krellna, this is Station Director Voss. Thank the stars you're here. I don't know how you found them, but those humans saved everyone. The attackers didn't even have time to retreat. It was over in minutes." Before Krellna could respond, another transmission came through, this time from the human ship. Commander Chen's voice was as direct as before, but now Krellna could hear something else in it, a carefully controlled intensity that sent a chill down her spine. "Federation vessel, this is Commander Chen. The immediate threat has been neutralized. We've secured the area and are providing humanitarian assistance to the mining station. However, we've detected something that concerns us." "What have you found, Commander?" Krellna asked. The attacking ships weren't random pirates or raiders. They were slavers, and their cargo holds contained over 300 individuals from various species. We're processing them for medical treatment and repatriation, but we need to know where they came from and who else might be involved in this operation. Krellna felt her blood turn cold. Slavery had been abolished throughout Federation space for over 2 centuries. The idea that it might still exist in the remote regions was horrifying. But worse was the implication that this might be part of a larger operation. "Commander Chen, slavery is strictly forbidden under Federation law. If there is evidence of organized slave trading, this must be reported to Federation authorities immediately." There was a pause before the human commander responded, and when she did, her voice carried a tone that Krellna had never heard before: cold, determined, and utterly without compromise. "Ambassador, I think you need to understand something about humans. We fought wars to end slavery on our own world, and we didn't stop there. If there's an organized slave trade operating in this region, the Earth Defense Force will not stand by and watch. We're going to find everyone involved and shut it down. Commander, you must understand that the Federation has established procedures for handling such situations. There are proper channels, legal processes that must be followed. With respect, Ambassador, we're not Federation members. We're not bound by your procedures. What we are bound by is our own moral code, and that code says that enslaving sentient beings is unacceptable under any circumstances." Krellna realized she was witnessing something unprecedented. In all of Federation history, newly contacted species either sought membership and guidance, or they remained isolated in their own systems. Never had a species announced their intention to take unilateral action beyond their own territory based on their own moral principles. "Commander Chen, perhaps we should arrange a formal meeting to discuss this situation and explore options for cooperation." "Agreed, Ambassador. But I should warn you that while we're talking, my ship is already transmitting everything we've learned here back to Earth Command. If there's a slave trade operating in this region, my people are going to want to know about it." The transmission ended, leaving Krellna staring at the human warship through her viewport. She realized that her simple response to a distress call had potentially changed everything. The Galactic Federation was about to encounter a species that not only possessed powerful military technology, but seemed prepared to use it based on their own moral convictions rather than established interstellar law. As she prepared to dock with the mining station to coordinate relief efforts, Krelna couldn't shake the feeling that she had just witnessed the beginning of something that would reshape the entire region of space. The humans had answered a call for help, but in doing so, they had announced their presence to the galaxy in a way that no one could ignore. The question now was whether that announcement would be a blessing or a catastrophe for everyone involved. Admiral Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the EDF dreadnought Indomitable, studying the holographic display that showed the current disposition of human forces throughout the Outer Rim. 3 weeks had passed since Commander Chen's encounter at the Kepler mining station, and the intelligence gathered from the rescued slaves had painted a disturbing picture of the region's criminal underworld. "Admiral," reported Lieutenant Commander Zhang from the communications station, "we're receiving updates from all recon teams. The slave trade network is larger than we initially estimated. We've identified at least 17 separate operations across 43 star systems." Webb's jaw tightened as he absorbed the information. When Earth's first ship had answered that distress call, they had expected to deal with a simple piracy incident. Instead, they had uncovered evidence of systematic enslavement affecting dozens of species across hundreds of light years of space. "What's the Federation's response to our findings?" Webb asked. "Ambassador Krelna has been in constant communication with her superiors," Zhang replied. "They're still debating the appropriate response through their council chambers. Estimated timeline for official action is anywhere from 6 months to 3 years, depending on bureaucratic review processes." Webb turned to face his tactical officer, Commander Lisa Park. "Status of our fleet deployment? 17 ships currently operating in the region, sir. We've rescued over 2,000 slaves in the past 3 weeks and identified the locations of 6 major slave processing facilities. However, we've also detected increased activity from what appears to be the organization's security forces." The tactical display updated to show new contacts throughout the region. Unlike the poorly armed raiders that Chen had destroyed, these ships showed energy signatures consistent with military-grade weapons and defensive systems. "They know we're here," Webb concluded. "They're mobilizing to protect their operation." At that moment, the ship's communication system activated with an incoming transmission marked as priority diplomatic. Webb nodded to Zhang, who accepted the call and routed it to the main viewer. Ambassador Krelna's elongated features appeared on the screen, but she was not alone. Behind her stood several other figures that Webb recognized from his briefings on Federation species. A crystalline being that had to be from the Nexus Collective, a tall insectoid representative of the Hive worlds, and what appeared to be a floating energy field that his translation software identified as a member of the Ethereal Council. "Admiral Webb," Krelna began formally, "I am pleased to introduce you to representatives from the Galactic Federation Emergency Council. They have asked to speak with you directly regarding your operations in this region." The crystalline being stepped forward, its faceted body refracting the light in complex patterns as it spoke. "Admiral Webb, I am Counselor Zenth of the Nexus Collective. The Federation appreciates your humanitarian efforts, but we must discuss the legal implications of your unilateral actions." Webb clasped his hands behind his back, maintaining military bearing. "Counselor Zenth, what legal implications concern you? We are operating in unclaimed space, responding to documented humanitarian crises." The insectoid representative clicked its mandibles before speaking in a harmonized voice that suggested multiple speakers. "Admiral, we are the Hive Queen Auxiliary Voices. The concern is not the space you occupy, but the precedent you establish. Military intervention without Federation oversight creates dangerous possibilities for future conflicts." "Let me understand this correctly," Webb replied, his voice remaining diplomatically neutral despite his growing frustration. "You're concerned that stopping slavers might set a bad precedent?" The floating energy field pulsed with different colors as it communicated. Admiral Webb, this is Counselor Ether of the Ethereal Council. The issue is more complex than simple moral imperatives. The galaxy requires stable, predictable responses to crisis situations. Uncoordinated intervention, regardless of intention, destabilizes established order. Webb exchanged a glance with Commander Park before responding. Counselors, I appreciate your concerns about stability, but I have a question for you. How long has this slave trade been operating in this region? The Federation representatives looked at each other uncertainly before Krelna answered. Our intelligence estimates suggest the criminal networks have been active for approximately 12 standard years. 12 years? Webb repeated slowly. And in those 12 years, how many people have been enslaved while the Federation debated the appropriate response? Counselor Zenth's crystalline body dimmed slightly. Admiral, the Federation processes are designed to prevent hasty actions that might cause more harm than good. Military intervention must be carefully planned and legally authorized. I see. Webb gestured to Commander Park, who activated a holographic display showing the locations of rescued slaves. Counselor, in the 3 weeks that Earth forces have been operating in this region, we have rescued over 2,000 sentient beings from slavery. Our projections suggest that if the current network continued operating for the 6 months to 3 years required for your legal processes, approximately 15,000 additional people would be enslaved. The Hive Queen auxiliary voices clicked rapidly. Admiral Webb, your actions, while well-intentioned, may provoke violent responses from criminal organizations that could endanger more civilians. Counselor, that's exactly what's happening right now, Webb replied. Which brings me to why I wanted to speak with you directly. Our intelligence indicates that the slave trading network is preparing to strike back against both our forces and Federation civilians in this region. We need to coordinate our response. The floating counselor Ether pulsed with red and orange lights. Admiral, the Federation cannot officially sanction military cooperation with non-member species operating outside legal frameworks. Webb felt his diplomatic patience beginning to fray. Let me be very clear about something, counselors. Earth didn't ask for Federation permission to stop slavers, and we're not asking for permission now. What I'm offering is coordination to minimize civilian casualties and maximize effectiveness against a criminal organization that threatens everyone in this region. Commander Park stepped forward slightly. Admiral, incoming priority transmission from Recon Group 7. Put it through, Webb ordered. The main display split to show Commander Chen's face, streamed from the bridge of the Defiant. Behind her, Webb could see damage indicators showing her ship had recently been in combat. Admiral, we've got a situation. The slavers just hit the Zephyrian trade station at Sigma Draconis. They're not just defending their operations anymore, they're actively targeting anyone who might cooperate with us. Webb's expression hardened. Casualties? Station population was 8,000. We arrived during the attack and managed to save about half of them. The bastards had modified their ships with Federation transponders to look like legitimate traders until they were inside the station's defensive perimeter. The Federation representatives on the diplomatic channel looked stricken. Counselor Zenth spoke first. Commander Chen, Sigma Draconis is a Federation protectorate. This attack constitutes an act of war against the Federation itself. Chen's expression was grim. Counselor, with respect, this stopped being about jurisdiction the moment they started killing civilians. My tactical analysis suggests they have at least 50 ships operating in coordinated groups. This isn't a criminal organization anymore, it's a private army. Admiral Webb turned back to the Federation representatives. Counselors, the situation has escalated beyond what either Earth forces or Federation peacekeepers can handle separately. We need to work together, or a lot more people are going to die. The Hive Queen auxiliary voices conferred among themselves in rapid clicks before responding. Admiral Webb, speaking for the Hive Worlds, we acknowledge the gravity of the situation. However, formal military alliance with non-Federation forces requires approval from the full Council. How long for that approval? Webb asked. Minimum 6 weeks for emergency session scheduling, Counselor Ether replied. Webb looked at Commander Chen's image on the split screen. Sarah, how long before they hit another target? Based on their attack pattern and the intelligence we gathered from captured communications, probably 36 hours. They're moving fast to eliminate potential allies before we can establish a broader coalition. The Admiral turned back to the Federation representatives. Counselors, I'm going to be very direct with you. Earth forces are going to continue operations against the slave network, regardless of Federation approval. We'd prefer to coordinate with you to minimize confusion and friendly fire incidents, but we're not going to let bureaucratic processes stop us from saving lives. Counselor Zenth's crystalline form flickered rapidly. Admiral. Such unilateral action could be interpreted as hostile by Federation forces. Only if Federation forces actively interfere with our humanitarian operations, Webb replied evenly. Are you telling me that the Federation would protect slavers from rescue efforts? Ambassador Krelna quickly interjected. Admiral Webb, the Federation would never protect criminal enterprises. Counselor Zenth is concerned about coordination protocols, not moral principles. Webb nodded. Then let me suggest a practical solution. Earth forces will continue operations against confirmed slaver targets. We will share intelligence with Federation authorities and coordinate through Ambassador Krelna to avoid conflicts with legitimate Federation activities. In return, we ask that Federation forces share intelligence about slaver movements and provide humanitarian assistance to rescued slaves. The three counselors conferred among themselves in their respective languages before Counselor Ether responded. Admiral Webb, while we cannot provide official military cooperation without full Council approval, we can authorize intelligence sharing and humanitarian coordination under existing emergency protocols. That's a start, Webb acknowledged. But there's something else you need to understand. Earth didn't send one ship to this region. We sent a reconnaissance force. Commander Park activated another holographic display, this one showing ship movements throughout Earth space. Counselors, in response to the intelligence gathered by our recon forces, Earth Command has authorized deployment of the Third Fleet to this region. 47 ships, including 12 dreadnoughts and supporting vessels. The Federation representatives stared at the display in shock. Counselor Zenth was the first to find his voice. Admiral, that is a substantial military force. What are Earth's intentions? Our intentions are simple, Counselor. We're going to find every slaver operation in this region and shut it down. We're going to rescue every slave we can find. And we're going to ensure that this kind of systematic exploitation never happens in this region again. The Hive Queen Auxiliary. Voices clicked urgently. Admiral Webb, such extensive military operations could destabilize the entire region. There may be political ramifications you have not considered. Webb's expression remained steady. Counselor, Earth has considered the ramifications. We've also considered the ramifications of doing nothing while thousands of sentient beings are bought and sold like cargo. We've made our choice. Commander Chen's image spoke from the tactical display. Admiral, I'm receiving reports from the other recon ships. The slavers are mobilizing everything they have. They know what's coming, and they're preparing for war. Webb nodded grimly. Counselors, you have 48 hours before the Third Fleet arrives in this region. I strongly suggest you use that time to decide whether the Federation wants to be our partner in ending this slave trade, or whether you want to stand aside and watch us do it ourselves. The transmission ended, leaving the Federation representatives in stunned silence. Webb turned to Commander Park. Lisa, prepare communications to all Earth ships in the region. Alert them that we may be operating without Federation support, and that they should be prepared for significant resistance. As his tactical officer moved to carry out the orders, Webb looked out at the stars visible through the bridge viewport. Somewhere out there, thousands of people were being held against their will. suffering in conditions that Earth had abolished centuries ago. The Federation might worry about legal precedents and political stability, but Webb had his own precedent to consider: humanity's absolute refusal to tolerate systematic oppression. The slavers had made a critical error when they decided to escalate their conflict with Earth forces. They had turned a humanitarian rescue operation into a military campaign, and Admiral Marcus Webb was very good at military campaigns. The Third Fleet was coming, and with it, the full weight of humanity's conviction that some things were worth fighting for, regardless of the political consequences. The space around Kepler 442b had transformed into something resembling a military staging area. Where 3 weeks ago there had been only Commander Chen's single ship and Ambassador Krellna's diplomatic vessel, now dozens of ships moved in carefully coordinated patterns. The arrival of Earth's Third Fleet had changed everything. Admiral Webb stood in the command center that had been established aboard the mining station, which the miners had voluntarily converted into a coordination facility. Around him, holographic displays showed real-time positions of human ships, Federation vessels, and identified slaver targets across a 50-light-year sphere. "Admiral," reported Commander Park from her position at the tactical console, "the final ships from the Third Fleet have arrived. All 47 vessels are now operational and in position." Webb nodded, studying the strategic display. The past 48 hours had seen frantic diplomatic activity as the Federation struggled to decide how to respond to humanity's unprecedented military deployment. The result was a compromise that satisfied no one but allowed cooperation to continue. "Status of Federation cooperation?" Webb asked. Ambassador Krellna, who had taken up permanent residence at the command center, looked up from her own communications array. "The Federation Council has authorized what they're calling parallel operations, Admiral. We're not officially allied, but we're sharing intelligence and coordinating to avoid conflicts." In practical terms, what does that mean? Federation ships will not directly participate in combat operations against the slavers, but they will provide search and rescue support, humanitarian aid, and intelligence gathering. Additionally, several independent planetary governments have offered to assist with processing and repatriating rescued slaves. Webb appreciated the honesty. It wasn't the partnership he had hoped for, but it was better than the active obstruction he had feared. "What about the slavers themselves? Any new intelligence?" Commander Chen materialized as a hologram from her position aboard the Defiant, which was currently leading a reconnaissance sweep of the Theta Serpentis system. "Admiral, we've identified their main command structure. They call themselves the Syndicate, and they're more organized than we initially realized." The main tactical display updated to show a complex network of bases, supply routes, and ship movements that spanned nearly 100 star systems. According to intelligence gathered from captured personnel, they've been operating for over 30 years. They have agreements with corrupt officials on dozens of worlds, and they've been financing some of their operations by selling weapons to various rebel groups. Webb studied the display grimly. This isn't just about slavery anymore. They're a destabilizing force across the entire region. "Gets worse, Admiral," Chen continued. "Our analysis suggests they have approximately 200 ships at their disposal, including some converted Federation military vessels that were supposedly decommissioned decades ago." At that moment, the command center's communications system activated with an incoming transmission. The voice that emerged was unlike any they had heard before, electronically distorted and clearly artificial. "Human Admiral Webb, I am Syndicate Coordinator 7. I understand you wish to discuss terms for cessation of hostilities in our operational region." Webb exchanged glances with Ambassador Krellna before responding. "Coordinator 7, I'm prepared to discuss terms, but let me be clear about what those terms are. Complete cessation of slave trading activities, immediate release of all currently held slaves, and surrender of all syndicate leadership for prosecution." The electronic voice carried what might have been amusement. "Admiral Webb, your terms are unacceptable. However, I have counter-terms that might interest you. Complete withdrawal of all Earth forces from this region, and we will agree to cease operations against Federation targets." "Counteroffer declined," Webb replied immediately. "But I'm curious, Coordinator 7. What makes you think you're in a position to negotiate?" "Admiral, perhaps you are unaware of the full scope of our capabilities. We have been monitoring your deployment. 47 ships is impressive for a newly contacted species, but insufficient against our full fleet." Commander Park looked up from her tactical station, making urgent hand gestures. Webb activated a private channel to her station. "Admiral," Park whispered, "long-range sensors are detecting massive ship movements throughout the region. They're mobilizing everything they have." Webb switched back to the open channel. "Coordinator 7, I think you may be operating under some misconceptions about humanity's capabilities. Would you care to discuss this in person?" "Admiral Webb, I will be perfectly clear. You have 72 hours to begin withdrawal from this region. If Earth ships are still operating in Syndicate space after that deadline, we will consider it an act of war and respond accordingly." The transmission cut off, leaving the command center in tense silence. Ambassador Krelna was the first to speak. "Admiral, if they mobilize their full fleet, the casualties could be enormous. Perhaps there's a diplomatic solution that doesn't require direct confrontation." Webb turned to face the full command staff. "Suggestions?" Commander Chen's hologram flickered as her ship maneuvered through an asteroid field while maintaining the communication link. "Admiral, I've been thinking about their operational structure. They're spread across dozens of systems, but their command and control seems centralized. If we could identify their primary command facility—" "Take out the head and the body dies," Webb finished. "What would we need to make that work?" "Massive coordinated assault on multiple targets simultaneously," Chen replied. "Hit their command structure, their main slave processing facilities, and their largest fleet concentrations all at once. Don't give them time to adapt or relocate." Park looked up from her tactical analysis. "Admiral, based on current intelligence, such an operation would require coordinating attacks across 17 star systems simultaneously. The timing would have to be perfect." Webb considered the proposal carefully. It was ambitious beyond anything humanity had attempted in space, but it was also exactly the kind of decisive action that might end the conflict quickly, with minimal civilian casualties. "Commander Park, begin planning for Operation Freedom Strike. I want detailed assault plans for every confirmed Syndicate facility, timed for simultaneous execution across the entire region." As his staff began working on the operational details, Webb activated a private communication channel to Earth Command. When Admiral Sarah Harrison appeared on the secure display, her expression was grim. "Marcus, I've been monitoring the situation. The Security Council is concerned about the scope of this operation. Sarah, we're past the point of small-scale intervention. The Syndicate has made this a regional war. Either we end it decisively or it escalates into something that could destabilize dozens of star systems." "What do you need from Earth?" Webb had been hoping she would ask that question. "5th and 7th Fleets, full deployment." Admiral Harrison's eyes widened slightly. "Marcus, that's over 100 additional ships. Are you planning to invade the entire region?" "I'm planning to end slavery in this region permanently, Sarah. And I want to make sure everyone understands that humanity doesn't do things halfway." After a brief pause, Harrison nodded. "You'll have them. 5th Fleet can be there in 6 days, 7th Fleet in 8. But Marcus, the President wants assurance that this won't turn into a prolonged occupation." "It won't need to be," Webb replied confidently. "Once we demonstrate what happens when someone enslaves people in human space, I don't think we'll have many repeat offenders." The transmission ended, and Webb turned back to the tactical displays. Around him, his staff was already deep into planning what would be the largest military operation in human history outside of their own solar system. Commander Chen's voice came through the communication system again. Admiral, you should see this. We've intercepted Syndicate communications, and they're not just mobilizing their military assets. They're moving slaves to what they call secure locations. The implications hit Webb immediately. They're planning to use them as human shields. That's our assessment, sir. They're consolidating thousands of slaves at their major facilities, probably hoping it will deter us from attacking. Webb felt a cold anger settle in his chest. The Syndicate had just made their final mistake. They had assumed that humanity would sacrifice the lives of slaves to avoid collateral damage, that moral considerations would limit human military effectiveness. They were about to learn how wrong that assumption was. "Change of plans," Webb announced to the command center. "We're not waiting for the 5th and 7th fleets. Operation Freedom Strike commences in 18 hours with current forces." Ambassador Krelna looked alarmed. "Admiral, 18 hours isn't enough time to coordinate with Federation humanitarian efforts. There will be thousands of people who need immediate medical attention and processing. Then I suggest you contact every Federation world within 50 light years and tell them to prepare for the largest refugee crisis in galactic history," Webb replied grimly. "Because in 18 hours, we're going to liberate every slave in this region simultaneously." Commander Park looked up from her planning station. "Admiral, preliminary analysis suggests we can hit 87% of confirmed Syndicate facilities with current forces, but some of the deeper targets will require—" "Hit everything we can reach," Webb interrupted. "Any facility we can't hit in the first wave, we'll clean up with follow-up operations. The important thing is to prevent them from relocating or eliminating slaves in response to our attack." As the command center erupted into intense planning activity, Webb took a moment to step back and consider what humanity was about to attempt. In 18 hours, 47 Earth ships would simultaneously attack targets across dozens of star systems, attempting to cripple a criminal organization that had operated with impunity for decades. It was audacious to the point of recklessness. It violated virtually every principle of gradual escalation that characterized civilized warfare. It would likely create massive political complications with the Galactic Federation. It was also absolutely the right thing to do. Webb activated his ship-wide communication system, broadcasting to every Earth vessel in the region. "All ships, this is Admiral Webb. In 18 hours, we're going to show this region what happens when you enslave sentient beings in the presence of humanity. We're going to hit them so hard and so fast that they never recover. And when we're done, every person in this region is going to understand that slavery is not tolerated in human space." He paused, looking out at the stars that contained thousands of people waiting for rescue. "Remember why we came here. Remember who we're fighting for. And remember that the galaxy is watching to see what kind of species humanity really is. Let's show them." Across the region, 47 human warships began their final preparations for what would become known as the Day of Freedom, the largest liberation effort in galactic history. The Syndicate had called for war, and humanity was about to show them exactly what that meant.